Hello and welcome back to the next stop, the place where we talk about where you've been, where you're at right now, and where you're going. And as you all know, we're going to talk about those things here. And we have a special guest, as you guys can see on my right. And I'm going to let him introduce himself.
How you guys doing? My name is Kamahl Grant. Used to give him the Morehouse intro, but
It's fine.
it's weird being a graduate.
Yeah, nah, things have changed. Things have definitely changed.
Indeed. But yeah.
So, yeah, Kamal, tell us a little bit about what you do. I know you grew up in kind of like the metro part of
hmm
Atlanta, and you went there for school, and then you, as you mentioned, went to
hmm
Morehouse College. But tell me a little bit more about what it was like growing up.
So I am from Gwinnett County. We love to say Gwinnett is not Atlanta. That's never been a problem for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, Gwinnett is great. What are we talking about? But I'm from Gwinnett County, born in New Jersey, but I've moved down to Gwinnett when I was 3 years old. So I would say raised here.
Hmm.
But I went to school, Grayson High School, 2020. So I was one of the COVID kids. To this day, I got beef with Rudy Gobert. But you know, it set up the time for me to go into Morehouse at a time where COVID kind of created a gap in culture.
Yeah.
So I was there to really experience the mixing of like the previous culture from like my older Morehouse brothers, such as you, but also with like the new digital culture that was being created by my class and the classes that came behind. So we were guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Basically, we were guinea pigs.
No, definitely. Like that COVID time was pretty interesting. Like I
hmm
know, like being the class that came right before COVID, like I kind of saw two different Morehouses,
hmm
and I know like Morehouses even now like it's completely different than what we experienced while we were in school. So I definitely can relate. Tell me a little bit more about like what it was like growing up in Gwinnett. Like what were some of the different things that you did? Like what's your family like? Like I know you have a twin brother. Like
hmm
talk a little bit more about that so that people can kind of get a better understanding of who Kamal is.
So Gwinnett was Gwinnett is more chill. It's more peaceful. Don't be fooled by amigos. Gwinnett is a suburb for the most part. So it was very much like more chill and relaxing. Like I remember
Yeah.
like being shaped a lot by my neighborhood experiences with friends. Like literally, whether it was the things that my parents pushed us into, such as like music and sports, whether it was
Mm.
basketball, whether an orchestra, or whether like in other things such as like the art honor society, which I was a part of. Like it was just very much community based. So it was very much like had that upbringing of like there were always things to do. There were always people to do things with.
Yeah.
Um, as opposed to like there wasn't always as much to do. Like I will say, like I many times we ventured or we went down to Atlanta to like hang out or like do fun stuff
Mm.
around Atlanta. But like Atlanta was more so it felt like a trip. So it's like compared to like some of my peers who grew up in Atlanta, like I have adjacent experiences with Atlanta, but like Atlanta is becoming my home, but it didn't start as that.
Yeah.
So it's like definitely like my experience was very much laid back, very much community oriented. Like I remember plenty of afternoons like playing basketball on the cul-de-sac with the guys or like going to bowling alleys or like going to the skating rink to like, chop it up or try and like mac on girls.
Yeah. No, that's real.
Successful and unsuccessful at times.
Yeah.
So it was like it was very much like nostalgic. Like I actually kind of missed that time, but it was chill. Those experiences kind of like carved out what kind of carved out my background as well because like in I really saw the the nuance or I really saw like the nuance of my background because I never thought much of it growing up, but I really saw the nuance of my background when I went to college, and especially like going to HBCU, like because everybody's black, you start seeing the differences in people based on class,
So
whether
it's
it be
like,
upper class, middle class, suburban, urban, lower class. So it's like that's where I really saw like the differences in my upbringing and kind of like um what classified me in terms of my peers and like my background and things of that nature.
I feel like that all like I feel like going to a HBCU like
Mm-hmm.
it really allows you to understand who someone else is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like their personality. because it's like, okay, cool, like we're both black, but it's like everyone's black here, so it's
Hmm.
like, what makes you unique? Like,
Exactly. People from the DMV are not the same as people from Houston.
yeah, but
Like
it's
it's
like,
just
there's people from the DMV who are completely different from me because
exact.
they grew up doing like skateboarding or listening to a
Mm,
different type of music. So I feel like it causes you to understand like someone at a deeper level, because
exactly.
it's like, all right, we all got this in common. It's like, no, like, who are you really, like, deep
Hmm.
down? Like, okay, cool, you're black, like I'm black too, but like, what makes you you?
That's valid. And it's like to that point about like family. I come from a very like loving, church going, two-parent home. Like literally, my parents have been married since 1990.
Hmm.
So, and they just celebrated like 24 years. And I remember me and my brothers grew up in the church, Baptist, but nowadays I lean more towards like non-denominational. And kind of like that upbringing that very much like do good because it is the right thing to do and because you have the opportunity to do so. And kind of like that strong faith-based background. I feel like that inspires a lot of who I am today in terms of not only how I treat people, but in terms of the goals that I set for myself and the things that I want to do in life.
Yeah. So now shifting gears a little bit, you
Mhm.
kind of talked about music and art. Can you speak a little bit more towards that, especially like at an early age?
So my parents were my parents weren't artists themselves, but my parents have always been very big into art.
Hmm.
Like in my if you were to come to my house, like there is like art everywhere. And there's art from like all different cultures, but primarily there's a lot of black African or African American artwork. Um my parents were very much like my parents very much wanted to emphasize the complexities, the nuance of our culture. They very much wanted to emphasize the nuance of blackness, like, and they very much wanted to emphasize that my history did not start with slavery, which is
Mm.
why that was always it. Like, literally, when we look at like what's going on with critical race theory today, like that's always been interesting to me because like what's funny to me is that like if they had never taught black history in schools like at all, like I would still very much be good because of my parents. Like all the literature we had growing up, all the art that we had growing up, all the music that they showed us growing up, like to this day, like I have Isley Brothers songs stuck in my head that I can't get out of my head because of my dad. So it's like literally to this day, like they've always imprinted that on us. And my mom would always tell us this story about when she was younger, during Christmas season, she would always want to find black angels to hang on the Christmas tree. And like she could never find them. Like all the angels around that time were white primarily. And my mom was born in like my mom was born in the 60s. So like during that time where racial relations were starting to get better, voting rights act, but there were still a lot of old things of like, previous parts of the US, but it's just like in of American culture. So like when she got older, I think that kind of pushed her to really pursue collecting black art. And then even with the black angels, like all over my house, like I literally every Christmas she pulls out this box and I'm like, where did you find all this stuff? Like, there's a black Santa Claus ornament, there's
Yeah.
black angels, there's a black nativity scene. I'm like, where did you find all this stuff? She's like, don't break it because they don't even make this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like she has everything. So it's like that really imprinted on my mom and dad with not only art, history, and culture, and then with music and arts, they pushed all three of my brothers into all three of me and my brothers into music. So we all did orchestra. So literally, my older brother played violin in high school and middle school, and then my twin brother played cello, and I played double bass. And one of these days I'm gonna get another double bass. But number one, it's huge, so you need space to store it. And then number three, that junk is expensive. Oh my, even a cheap one would be like $1,000.
Yeah.
So,
There definitely is like a barrier to entry with certain things.
mm-hmm,
But that's pretty dope though. You kind of had a little family band going on.
something like that.
But I think that's pretty deep that your parents, made sure that they emphasize black culture and a lot of black positivity, because in the
Mm,
media, And like in the classroom, like especially like white classrooms, well, you're kind of taught that, oh, the first thing that you learn about the history of our people is slavery,
Mm-hmm.
and then you learn about the civil rights era, which is great, but then you see what's in the media now, and it's really not positive all the time. So I feel like it is very important that you're. I think it's great that your parents, made sure there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
positivity and showing some of the great things that people that look like us have done.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. Like I have more black children's books than I will ever be able to read in a lifetime. But I know that when my parents pass away, or even when I become a parent, they're gonna pass those on to me, and I'll have those to pass on to my children. So I'm very much like look forward to like the bedtime stories that I'll be able to read to my kids because I have such a collection of black literature due to my parents. But
Do you think that kind of gave you a self confidence because you knew you came from greatness that you had the ability to do certain things? Because I know, like, to be just very honest, like some people they come from the mindset of, oh, like I'm a black person, I've been taught that I can't do certain things, right?
mhm,
Or like I can't be as great as what I'm supposed to be because in society I'm deemed as a thug, and this is kind of what's promoted. Do you think that your parents showing you all this black positivity, having all these different books, having these angels and these black Santas, shows you that like, hey, my race doesn't stop me from doing anything that I set my mind to?
mhm. Definitely. Because like what you believe is possible for you and people who look like you will largely influence what you become. Like I learned that black people were doctors and engineers before I ever learned that they were slaves at one point. Like I learned that black people were mathematicians and actresses and singers and ball players before I ever learned that like people had been incarcerated or some were criminals. And that's a duality thing. I think that duality, I think that complexity, I think that nuance, the nuance of having multiple shades allows for humanity. Because like when people's first introduction to what they can be is something negative or something, dehumanizing, it basically dehumanizes what you believe you can be. Um he's like, and we don't realize we don't that's that's always been a concern with me with black media, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole because like what we don't realize is that like when we show people the majority of one thing, when we show people the majority of this one negative trope, we are essentially in the minds of, especially in the minds of young children and people, like we are dehumanizing what it means to be black because you are showing the worst of society to them and you are imprinting on people at a very young age that this is what most black people are. And then another rabbit hole discussion is in the few positive instances of where we see people make it, it's in entertainment, which is there is nothing
Mm.
wrong with entertainment. Our black people have a strong history of arts, music, entertainment, whether it be comedy, whether it be plays, shows, TV. Like we have a strong history of that. But that seems to be the only thing we emphasize sometimes. So it's just like seeing that as well.
Yeah, and my problem with entertainment is that we don't own anything in entertainment.
Yeah.
Like there's a lack of ownership of black people. Like we're like I'm gonna be honest, it's like we're the good. Like we're the resource that these owners are selling because we don't own it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not that I know of. There aren't any individuals that own an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
There's aren't any black individuals. Well, no, there are a few black individuals that own an NBA team. There's a couple, but there aren't that many people that own a baseball team. There's aren't that
Mm-hmm.
many people who actually own a record label and
Mm-hmm.
all the rights to their music. So we're just a resource that they're selling.
Bro,
Like
literally,
even that's a issue right there because it's like people are profiting off of our culture and our
I
likeness
was
doing
literally
this.
bamboozled when I found out who owned BET. I was like, "What?" I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, I'm like, I'm seeing my people, but like, which you mean?
But it makes sense that certain things are promoted
It does.
because it's like if you're a person of color,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you want it to be positivity on TV? Wouldn't you want more music that's positive and that's uplifting the culture to get a little bit more attention?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we wonder why, like, oh, we're seeing the same generic thing over and over and over again, and it's not the most positive thing ever.
Yeah, there's about like 5 black classics that come to mind that are literally the same movie with different characters and a
don't,
slightly different
don't
plot.
even get started on the music.
I was okay. I was literally having a conversation with someone the other day. Um, in fact, I was having a conversation with my brother. I was having a conversation with Jamal, and I was literally talking to him. I'm like, respectfully, most of the music that's out right now, specifically with hip hop and R&B, most of the hip hop and R&B that's out right now, if we're being real, is anti-black. Like, if I like, and don't get me wrong, these people are amazing artists, but unfortunately, like the subject matter in the way that certain things are glorified, I'm like, okay, if we are to take away the 808s, I'm not gonna lie, the beat hard,
The
and
beat is
and
hard.
unfortunately, too many people I know, they be like, bro, I listen for the beat, especially like young kids, I listen for the beat. The beats, I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna lie, these music engineers with these 808s, they killing it right now. The game is
Yeah,
in a great place, but like if we're to take away the 808s, and I am to just print out the lyrics from Genius, I'm to read them to you, you would be disgusted. If I were to just read the lyrics out to most people, you'd be like, "What are we talking about?" And it's like I hear the excuse so many times of like, "Well, they just rapping about the environment." I'm like, first of all, this is true, but like, I know a lot of
that's not
rappers.
even true.
I know
A lot of those people are not from that environment.
a lot
A
of
lot
people.
of they're not.
Number one, a lot of people capping. Number
Yes.
two, I know a lot of rappers who rap about their environment, but not in such a way that glorifies it. And then number three, just because they don't know any better, because that's how they grew up, and maybe their eyes haven't been open to the brokenness of such environments and the type of people that they create, just because they may not know any better, what that mean about you? So
Yeah.
it's like you know better. So it's like, and it's like we as a people, I think we we underplay the psychological. Like we act like this music doesn't affect us, and like if you listen, like, and I know this music affects us because like we all knew that one person in high school that listened to nothing but straight NBA YoungBoy, and it's like keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on him. So it's
Yeah.
like I know this music affects people because we've seen it in extreme examples.
It's like,
So
dude, you're from the suburbs, but you're listening to NBA YoungBoy, and now you dropped out of high school, and instead of going to college, you
bro,
trapping right now.
bro,
That doesn't make sense.
well, you know
That
what?
doesn't make sense at all.
You know, one of the funniest things is that like I have respect for people who I have respect and sympathy for people who, due to the unfortunate circumstances that they were placed in, they had to do things that years later they're not proud of to make a living. And we won't get into what that could mean a lot of things. But
Yeah.
like I have a certain respect and sympathy. I'm not saying what they did was right, but I have a certain respect and empathy. But like, bro, growing up in the suburbs, bro, I knew people who were selling drugs, and it's like, bro, I know your family. Your mom's a dentist, bro. Like, you don't have to do. I'm like,
Yeah.
like,
Like
dog,
that's the biggest
like your
differentiator
parents
because it's
get you
like
the new Air Jordans whenever you want them.
if you
What are
don't
you
have to
doing?
do it, then why are you doing this?
That
You're
that
obviously doing this because like it's getting glorified and you're seeing other people do it.
it was.
But it's like if you're not in that type of situation, why are you even doing that?
Oh my lord,
And I'm not saying that if you are in that situation, you should be
this is
doing
good
that.
water.
But thank you. But but it's like it makes more like if you're not dealing with that, why are you dealing with that?
It's
Like
just
it
like
just doesn't make sense at all.
most people are rapping and making music to get out of that life.
Yeah, and it's like if you really sit down and ask someone who comes from like not their best background, hey, do you want to go back to that financial situation?
No.
Or do you want to like go back and live in that environment? Most people will tell you no. They'll go back and help people in that environment, but they don't want to live that type of life again. Like the whole
Exactly.
goal is to elevate. And it's like the problem is some people they take what they're hearing in this music too serious and they end up like going backwards.
Or they one thing that's also interesting is when like people reach a certain level of financial and like reputable success in like the music industry or any other like entertainment industry, and then like they still feel entrapped by the opinions of people in that community. So it's like, oh, I still got to be hard. I still got to push drugs. I still got to do. I'm like, bro, you made 10 million from rapping this year. The most you ever made from drugs, maybe in your best year, was like 1.2 million illegally and allegedly.
Yeah.
Why do you still need to?
It's like who are you proving? Why do you feel the need to prove yourself to someone else?
Because like at this point, most of your audience is people who will never have lived those life experiences.
No, but it's also like,
So it's
why
like,
would you want to put yourself in risk to go back to that? It just doesn't make sense because it's like obviously you're living this certain type of lifestyle for someone else. Because if you're not doing that for yourself, you're not getting anything positive from it.
mm-hmm.
Like you're not putting your family in a better situation because you're putting yourself and your livelihood at risk for that. So who are you really doing this for? All right, you're doing this to look cool for other people. But it's like if you have to do that to look cool for other people, do those other people really care about you?
Hey man, so I love my dad because my dad comes from that generation of people. He comes from that generation of men who do not give jack squat with someone, like unless it's like unless you write my check or unless I take care and provide for you, your opinion means jack diddly squat. Like, and the lessons that he imprinted on me and my brothers, they really started coming in handy in college. I'm like, bro, these people do not pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
These people don't pay my meal plan. They don't pay my scholarship. They're not doing my homework for me. It's like what it kind of like those lessons really kicked in adulthood, where it's just like there are certain things they care about and there are certain things that not, and it's just like I don't think I think more young adults need to do a better job of discerning the validity of opinions, because like there's like because there's the extreme end of that is now you're blowing off everybody, including people who are genuinely critiquing you to help you,
Mm-hmm.
which I see a lot of times. And like I see, I'll use examples I know. I see this at Morehouse, where it's like you always have like a few freshmen who it's like, bro, they can't take advice for jack. You call them out, you think it's a personal attack. They start getting all up and up. They might cuss you out, and it's just like, you got it, Bucko. Like I'm not. So it's just like not to the extreme, but like you got to know whose opinion is worth some salt and whose isn't.
Yeah,
And I don't think enough people know how to discern that.
yeah. One thing that I was told was, eat the fish, spit out the bones. If you think it's good, relevant advice, like take it. If you think this person's trying to tear you down or it's not relevant, then just leave it for what it is, right? But it's like as a person who wants to grow every single day, I have to be open to critique, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can only do so much self reflection. Sometimes you have to look at things from a different point of view, and that's through other different people who generally have your best interest in you, right? Like if you say, Steven, you're not doing what you're supposed to do with X, Y, and Z, I should take a step back and be like, all right, is what Kamal's saying have some validity to it? Or is he seeing it this way for some type of reason? But it's like, if you're someone I respect or someone that I know cares about me, you're probably telling me this to help me become better.
Mm-hmm.
You're not saying this to tear me down. But like what you were kind of saying, it comes with that discernment.
Yeah, because it's just like that's the key thing. Because it's just like in this day and age, especially in like this age of social media, like you're gonna have a lot of people who big you up. You're gonna have a lot of people who hate on you.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have people that blow up your head, and you're gonna have people who are always wanting to pop your balloon. So it's like the key is knowing which opinions to like care about, because some things ain't worth like typing a response to. Some things ain't worth even getting into an argument with. Some people you just gotta leave them where they are, which is like, you know what I'm saying, like we can some people you got to know who to agree to disagree with. Some people you got to know who to what do you mean by that. Some people,
Yeah.
so it's just like knowing that. But I think for me, like especially like with my faith-based background, one thing that's always been good for me is that like before we move on, is that like biblically I like to compare stuff. So it's like literally every piece of wisdom that I've ever learned has not come from the Bible. But like if I get a piece of wisdom or someone puts me on game that I'm not sure about, like I'll take the principle. And it's like if I can't find that in the word, like if I can't find something that like parallels to that, then I'm like, that might be good advice, but it might not be like godly advice that I should live by. Because like not all advice you should take. So it's like that's for me, like prayer and like reading my word and studying my word, like that really helps me in discerning advice.
Mm-hmm.
Because like sometimes like advice does really sound good and like you might want to run with it, but it's just like sometimes you truly don't know. So it's a nuanced topic.
And like what you were kind of speaking about, I think it's important to have things that ground you in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's religion for some people, whether it's like your morals, your ethics, but like having something to ground yourself by and be like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
does this line up with my morals and my ethics or my religious beliefs? If not, like you said, is that advice that I should really take?
Yeah.
Like you kind of using that to test, like, all right, is this valid or not? So I definitely agree. But I kind of want to hear a little bit more about like when you started creating art, and I want to hear a little bit about this Target competition as well.
So art was interesting because like I started making art literally like a lot of black kids drawing Dragon Ball Z characters.
That's hard.
that's how I
That's hard.
started. I
Yeah,
started drawing. I was like Dragon Ball Z Kai, the reones,
great show.
the reshow of it that they had that like
Nickelodeon.
yeah, it cut out
Yep.
some of the filler episodes. Like bro, I grew up on Dragon Ball Z Kai, so literally like my journey started like drawing Dragon Ball Z characters, and then I realized like at elementary school, he's like, oh, I'm kind of better than most people at this. This
Yeah.
might be a thing.
Yeah.
So then, like from there in middle school, like I was really into like basketball, like still am. And I remember like this was like around like 2011, 2012, 2013. So I remember like I would sketch basketball sneakers, and this was when like shoes were like the KD6 were out. Like this was when shoes were like the LeBron 11, the bulky joints. The LeBron 11s were out.
Yeah.
Um, who else had a really nice shoe? The Kobe's were out. So like literally, I remember in middle school, like I was selling Skittles, and like people would pay me to like do sketches of like basketball shoes. I'm like,
That's hard.
we're making a living, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Making a killing.
we're making a killing. Like I was the Skittles guy. Me and my brothers were the Skittles twins, and I was
The
sketch,
Skittles twins.
bro. All I know is
So y'all were the school candy dealers.
bro, we upgraded from Skittles to M&Ms to Honey Buns. All I remember is that here's how I knew where like I had some kind of like influence and people respected me because like there were some other people who tried to like do the same thing because like we would go to Costco on the weekends, buy that chicken like wholesale, and then like sell stuff for like $1. But like
Yeah.
if you buy like a 36 count pack for wholesale, if you do the math, each one of them like 36 pack is only worth like 75 cents. So you sell it for $1, you making your bread back. So this is how I knew like people in the school respected us because like we would have gym or we would have like early intramurals
Yeah.
like before school. Like we'd go early to like hoop for like an hour or two before like classes started, and then we go to first period sweaty as mess. It was disgusting looking back on those life choices. But
Yeah, that kind of is
we
crazy.
would just put our stuff in a locker and we didn't have no locks. But like because people respected us, like they wouldn't steal our stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I remember it was so funny because there were some people who tried to like compete with me and my bro, and they would put their stuff in lockers, and whenever people would always jack them, but they wouldn't jack us. So that's when I knew I was like,
That's
okay,
crazy.
I got a little,
Hey, I
I
got a little
got
stain.
got a little stain on them. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like I think that was mainly because of like the way that we just treated people, and people like had a respect for us. Plus, we were good at basketball, so it was like, oh, the twins, bro. It was a whole thing. But
Yeah.
going back to the art, so that was really where it kind of started. Basketball sneakers and Dragon Ball Z characters, but art got put put on a back burner a little bit, um, in middle school because I got really involved with like orchestra and basketball. I was doing AAU and I was doing like school ball. So around like spring semester of my sophomore year of high school, everybody comes to that realization sooner or later that they're not going to the league. So that realization came to me around my sophomore year. To this day, I remember playing Brandon Boston in AAU, and I was just like, this might not be for me.
What made you say that? Like, what happened?
bro, when you play pros, bro, it's just like, cause like we were like we were like in like eighth grade, but like eighth, ninth grade, but like I don't even think Brandon Boston's like 6'6". Back then he was maybe only like 6'2", 6'1". But like he was just giving us buckets, like he was nasty, bro. I'm just like, you know what? I might not be going to the league to
Was it
this.
like is
This
he better than me or I don't want it as much as him?
it was kind of like I'm better than me. It was like he's better than me. It was like I might not want it as much as him. Well, actually, no, I wanted it pretty bad. I thought I was gonna be 6'4" because like my dad is 6'3" and my mom is 5'8",
I'm
and it just,
sorry.
bro,
I'm laughing because he's not 6'3".
bro, I'm 5'11", bro. Like my dad is 6'3" and my mom is 5'8". I'm 5'11 and a half, bro. I really thought it was gonna be for me. Like I thought I was gonna hit that extra growth spurt, bro. Like, bro, I used to be able to dunk my freshman year of high school. Like,
Yeah.
I really thought it was gonna be for me. Like, this growth spurt gonna hit my junior year. It didn't hit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that too. And then like in the back of my mind, what was kind of like my safety net, which like in a sense probably didn't make me go as hard as I could have, is that in the back of my mind, I always knew I was smart enough to get an academic scholarship.
Mm,
Whereas like some of the guys that I'm playing with, they grinding this hard because like they trying to go to college for free, and it's just like
yeah.
I had a 4.0 GPA and like an easy 4.0. Like high school was easy.
Yeah.
So it was like I knew I was like
Well, I'm good.
I'm going to school for free somewhere.
Okay.
So around that point, I love how my stories have detours. Um, but spring semester sophomore year, we finished the basketball season and I'm like, am I gonna come back for junior year? And I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna play junior year. I'm not gonna play basketball anymore. So I'm like, I need something to fill in the time because like basketball practice, that's like 2 hours every day after school.
Mm-hmm.
You got games. You got like once you stop playing organized sports, you realize how much free time you have.
Yeah.
So I picked up art again. And originally I started sketching with portraits, and then I started once I got good at sketching and like shading and like all that jazz. I started experimenting with paint. I tried watercolor, didn't like watercolor, though I might try it again. I tried acrylic. I didn't like acrylic initially, though the painting that I'm working on currently is acrylic, and I'm actually starting to enjoy it because I know how to use it more now. But back then, I picked up oil paint and I picked up oil pastel, and I fell in love. So like ever since then, I've been doing that. And then with Target, the Target piece is funny. So for context, for everybody in the audience, I won the HBCU Design Challenge for 2023, and for this past Black History Month, February 2024, my artwork was on. I actually have the sweater upstairs, but my artwork was on apparel in Target all through Black History Month, and that junk sold out like hotcakes. Like I did not know people were gonna like the sweater that much. But what was interesting is that the artwork for the sweater I made it was winter break of 2020. It was winter break of my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So I had made that piece like years ago, like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Can
And
you describe the piece for the audience?
so the piece was basically a dual portrait of me and my twin brother. And I named the piece Twin. But what I was trying to express with the piece as well was that it was it touched on the duality of code switching, but also the duality of code switching and how it pertains to respectability politics, specifically in the workplace. Because I remember in high school, I had a beard and I had like this short afro in high school. Like I really look kind of similar. But I remember my brother, he has like cornrows now, but in high school he had these free form locks, and like they were like all over the place. But we were both really good at math. We both did orchestra. We both had straight A's. We both played on the basketball team. But like, if you didn't know any better, you might assume something different about him than you would about me, based on the way that we looked, based on the way that we presented ourselves. And oftentimes that plays a role in the workplace and how people have to present themselves in a certain way in terms of how they upkeep and groom themselves in order to be viewed as respectable. Like we just recently had the Crown Act in California, and like a lot of other legislation is now finally starting to push back on those stereotypes and on those like harmful, like on those harmful standards. Because like I have like plenty of aunties who could tell stories about how they had like heat damage from having to straighten their hair in the workplace because of like certain like appropriate hairstyles and things of that nature. So it's just like, to me, that was really important to me, because growing up in Gwinnett, growing up in the suburbs, race was interesting because like I had never experienced like the extreme, like stark tragedies of racism. Um, like literally, even to this day, like if I see the police, I'm like, "What's up?" Like the police in Gwinnett are chill. Like I've never had an incident. I never had a bad experience. But I know it's not like that everywhere. I don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
But like where I grew up, that was never been an issue. But I always saw racism play out in different ways. Whereas I always saw racism play out more so in like microaggressions
Mm.
or like implicit bias or like
Yeah.
assumptions that like you might not think nothing of, but like as you're older, you look back on, you're like, what
Like,
the
yeah.
it's like that was kind of crazy. That was kind of weird. So it's like that's like my experience with race. That was one of my first experiences with race in kind of like a public setting that I remember, and that's why it was like really important for me to touch on in that art piece. And that's why like with my art in general, I like to touch on certain aspects of black culture. I like to touch on certain aspects of blackness. I like to touch on certain aspects of race um in society that were observable to me, because due to the socio-economic condition and history of African Americans, a lot of African American art lends itself to suffering, um, which is necessary. Those stories need to be told, and we can clearly see by some people clearly have the agenda to erase those stories as if they never happened, and those stories need to be told.
Yeah.
But the stories that I observed, the stories that I want to tell, are more subtle. I saw my race being a factor in society in more subtle ways. But I also saw the beauty of my race in more vibrant ways due to the way that my parents raised me. And I want to talk about race from those perspectives that I observed growing up in my art. So a lot of the stuff that a lot of the themes that I talk about in my art, a lot of the themes that I seek to shed light on are more subtle and you might not even pick up on it. And that's okay to me because I want my art to be able to be enjoyed from like a fine art perspective in terms of like, oh, this is deep type, type beat. But like, I also want my art to be enjoyed from an aesthetic perspective. Like, if you simply think the piece is pretty, that's just as amazing to me as if you see what I was quote unquote trying to do. So
Yeah.
that's really big to me right now with my art, and like really taking time to think about what's important to me and what am I trying to communicate before I put like the brush to the canvas.
Oh, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And tell the audience a little bit more about the target competition and the different opportunities that were presented to you because of winning it.
Oh, got it. Shout out Target. Met a lot of great people through my experience. But literally I was minding my business. This was like junior year, like September, October, and I get an email about this HBCU design challenge. And I brush it off, like I'm not thinking much of it. And then literally one of the deans of the school, he forwards me the email. It's like, you need to do this. I'm like, okay. Was it where it's like I'll say I love about my HBCU, like the people there, like they want you to win. Like they'll
Yeah.
go out of their way to like help you if they like you.
That's
And if you
because
have
it's
a
a
relationship.
family.
It is a
Morehouse is
family.
a family.
It is a family. It's truly a family. So literally, no, I can say his name. Dean Turner, he reached out to me.
Hmm.
And he was like, you need to do this. So I actually like look at it. I'm like, I read it. I'm like, okay, designs, da da da, cool, cool. So I'm looking at the deadline, and I'm like, deadline in like 3 weeks, and I'm like, I'm not making an art piece in 3 weeks. Like, which I'm very jealous of digital artists because I actually need to pick up Procreate. That's another story for another day. But I'm very jealous of digital artists who can make their art quicker on the fly. Um, but so that's why I looked back through the art. through the archives, and I was like, wait a second, I haven't used this piece. I've been sitting on this. So I submitted it, and I submitted it to Target, and I literally forgot about it because one thing about my art, like I'm sensitive about that junk. Like I don't want to like be waiting and expecting it, and then it's like, unfortunately, we decided to not move forward. And I'm just like, oh, all right. So I literally submit it and I forget about it. Like I don't want to think about it. So later next semester in March, they hit me back and they're like, oh, you're one of the winners. I'm like, oh, that's crazy, but I didn't really understand the significance of it yet. But they're like, you're one of the winners. You're gonna receive the prize money, and so I'm like, cool, cool, cool. I get the money during the summer, so this is great. And then where things really started heating up is my senior year, this past year. So I do an internship with them. I get to work with their senior design team. We're really an apprenticeship, more like an apprenticeship. But I get to work with their senior design team. I got to learn a lot of cool stuff. Um, and I got to really like make some connections that were really beneficial to me. And then where everything changed was like, I knew they were going to use it in February. I didn't know how they were going to use it. But February rolls around. In fact, it dropped in stores January 21st. It didn't even hit in February. It dropped in stores January 21st. And like it just blew up. Like I first saw it. I first didn't see it in stores. I was randomly scrolling on TikTok. Like I'm scrolling on TikTok and I see this lady talking about like new stuff in Target and she's wearing my sweater. I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
So I was like, then after that, I go to the Target website and I'm like, oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. So literally the day after, my mom is calling me. He's like, yeah, some of my friends in California, Philly, and New York are telling me that stores are already sold out. And I'm just like, what is going on? So it's like, I'm going to airports and I'm seeing people wearing my sweater. Like I'm going out to eat and I'm running into people wearing my sweater. Like obviously on campus, like people show love. So I'm seeing like a bunch of people buying a sweater. But even now, like literally I can't go 2 weeks without running into somebody wearing that sweater. So it's just like the way that it was so well received, um, was just like it was really a blessing. But it was also kind of funny because like the reason why it was funny is because I typically do two styles of art. I do oil paint and I do oil pastel. And my oil pastel pieces take significantly less time to do than my oil paint pieces. Yet that's the one that blew up. So it's not even always about the skill, the technique, the time, the details. Sometimes it's just about an idea and how well you communicate it.
Mm.
Um, so seeing how well it did in stores and seeing how well it did in stores and the apprenticeship that I did with Target, it taught me a lot about the commercial aspect inside of art. Whereas before, I'd always been looking at the fine art side. Like, oh, I want my stuff in museums one day. I want my stuff in festivals. Like, I want my stuff in like galleries. I want my stuff to be at like private auctions. But like now, like seeing how well my artwork did in Target, it really kind of opened my eyes to like the marketing and the commercial side of art and what that could look like. And I'm still exploring what that potentially could look like as well.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for aspiring artists or just people who are passionate about entrepreneurship?
The biggest lessons that I'm learning right now, because these are the challenges that I'm dealing with right now. Marketing doesn't matter. First step is a product. You got to have a product. So like a product is going to come from what you love to do or what you're interested in. So once you have a product, cool. But like you could have the coolest thing in the world. Nobody will ever know unless you market it. And I was joking with one of my friends the other day. I was like, bro, why do I have to be a content creator? I wish I could just be an artist. Like I just want to paint dope stuff and then have someone show up at my doorstep with a check. Like I will buy this off you right now.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works. You have to market. You have to pop out and show people. you have to you have
Shout out
to
K Dot.
you have to like go to the events. You have to talk to people and it's like, oh my gosh, you have to talk to people about your art. Um when people ask me about my art, it's easy, but like
Yeah.
talking to people about my art, because like I don't want to sound like arrogant or like it's the best stuff ever. But at the same time, it's like My stuff was
You
really
have to sell it though.
yeah. I gotta sell it. So it's
Like
just like literally like marketing myself. And it's not even like, and I say more so myself than the art because like what I've really learned through studying the commercial side through my like internships, but also like through selling my own art through commissions or other things or Target. Um, it's not. There's a lot of pretty art in the world. There's a lot of amazing artists in the world. There are people in this world who can paint better than me. There are people in this world who can compose better than me. There are people in this world who can do a lot of stuff artistically on a canvas better than I can. I have a lot to learn, but none of that matters if people don't buy into the story. None of that matters if people don't buy into the brand. None of that matters if people don't buy into who the person is. Like the reason why Basquiat is so big, one, because his art is like it's eye catching. Like you're gonna see his art style is literally his signature. Like you know a Basquiat piece when you see it. Like
yeah,
it's recognizable easily. But number two, it's the story of Basquiat. And the story has like snowballed to the point to where people don't even know the whole story. A lot of people don't even know the whole story of Basquiat, but they know the name,
it's the lore behind it.
the the lore. So like the lore of Basquiat is now it's just like okay. So it's like the story, the branding, the connection to the artist, like that's what matters. So marketing myself and talking to people, and like I'm in a place now where it's like I'm in a place now where I'm making art. I'm in a place now where I'm talking to potential patrons. I'm in a place to where I'm discussing things with potential people to do with my art. I'm in a place where I'm finalizing, sending out my portfolio. I'm in a place where I'm talking to people and like planning out going to museums and galleries to like have those nervous conversations and promote myself. Like it's nerve wracking. Like my stuff sold out and it's still nerve wracking because like there's always like the self fighting the self down in the back of your mind is like, bro,
Mm,
is my stuff good enough? Because like I know where I want it to be one day, but every once in a while that self doubt will hit, and it's just like, bro, is my stuff good enough to be there one day? So it's like that'd be the hardest part because like that will that self doubt will be the thing that makes you like, oh, you're at an event and like a person that you need to talk to is like 30 feet away, and that will be the thing that makes you not walk up to that person. Like that will be the thing that like, yo, someone put you onto this dope person, you need to shoot them an email within the week, and that'll be the thing that makes you like hesitate a day or two to send that email. And it's like I know these aren't sexy things to say, but like that's real.
it's human.
Like it's like I'm still like as well as my stuff did nationwide, I would say I'm at a place to where I'm still discovering my confidence in my art. Um,
But I think confidence is something that you have to practice.
this is true.
Like you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because everyone has imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks you're not good enough until you make it, and even after you make it, you still not sure if you're good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you have to have that faith in yourself that hey, even if I'm not good enough, I'm going to be there one day. And it's like sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith,
Facts.
and like I believe that God's going to carry you the rest of the way.
Indeed. He wouldn't have put me in the room if I wasn't supposed to,
You wouldn't be there, especially not as a black man, if you're not supposed to be there.
Bro.
Just keeping it real. Like people might not like it, but it's true.
There are too many reasons for you not to be in there. So it's like if you're in there, you're supposed to be
You're
in there.
supposed to be in there.
You're supposed to be in there. Facts.
But as we wrap up, what's your next stop?
My next stop. Oh, touching on what you mentioned soon. I graduated and I'm in this like limbo period where I'm blessed to be spending time with family before I start working. But I'm about to start working in like October.
Mm-hmm.
So I already know that's gonna be a beast because like
Yep.
I love what I do. I love where I work. Um but I remember working for them as like an intern. So like I'm already knowing that like coming in, I'm like that has to be the main thing.
Yeah.
Once I start working and it's just like being prepared to like do all and like stretch my wings as far as I desire to now because like I'm prepared to make that sacrifice that like to put this on the back burner now so I can make the main thing in my life, which is work, and which is, gaining skills, networking, and really learning a new field, a new industry. So making the main thing and putting that on pause until, everything aligns in the right way for it to be something that I can pour more time into eventually. But, preparing to work. That's where I'm at right now. So I've been really like planning, I've been really painting, I've been really building, and preparing to build things that won't crumble while I'm taking time away from them.
Yeah.
Building something that will sustain until I genuinely have the time to come back to it. So I can make the main thing right now.
And that definitely makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to give you the chance to shout out your socials and for people to reach out to you if they want to, or people to just see your art. Would you want to share your Instagram and all that?
My Instagram is Kamahl. So KA_MAHL. My art page is Art by Kamahl. So same thing, Art by KA_MAHL. Planning on dropping some new content soon. Planning on a lot of new updates soon in terms of like art, in terms of new pieces, in terms of new projects, in terms of new announcements. So I'm really excited about that. This summer has been a blessing for me to like take some time off to rest, but it's also been a time for me to like really spread my wings creatively and really grow. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we definitely appreciate having you here,
yes, sir,
on the podcast, bro. We're excited to see what you do for your next stop, and
Indeed.
we look forward to making more episodes with you in the future too.
I'll be back, bro. Just let me know.
That's a bet. Well, we're out. Thank you all for tuning in.